I want to take a moment just to thank you so much for joining me, and I want to thank all my new subscribers. You really help me to support my channel by subscribing and liking and sharing my content, and I just want you to know I appreciate it very much. One of the gifts that I received while experiencing my personal hero's journey was the gift of receiving visions. I am sharing one of them with you today. If it resonates with you, please share this video with others because it contains keys of insight and on so many levels that people may be able to use it during their awakening and their ascension process. Now, just to set the stage before I start telling you my vision, I want to say once we are well on our way to becoming fully awake, we engage in the ascension process, which is a new creation crafted by you for you. In this way, we help to create the new positive timeline. So I call this vision the filthy child, the king, and the fart. And yeah, it got banned off of Facebook, probably because of the title, but it's actually a very interesting story. And this is how it goes. I want you to make yourself comfortable, unless you're driving, in which case just keep your eyes on the road. But if possible, try to make yourself very comfortable. Close your eyes and see if you can see what I'm seeing as I'm describing the vision. Okay. So it starts off with a little child. The little child's maybe 3, maybe 4 years old, could be a little bit older, and it's dressed in rags, and it's filthy from head to toe. I don't know if its hair has ever been washed, all matted up, dirt on the face, arms, legs, and the child doesn't look very well nourished. And here this child finds itself standing in a desert, and it looks around from side to side, and all it sees is the desert. I'm sorry, this always makes me cry, and it's kind of embarrassing, but let's just go with it because it's how I am. My heart goes out to this little child standing in the middle of a desert, no shoes, looking around, and there's basically nothing. There's no support, there's no love, there's no good food, there isn't even a bath, there's just nothing. And clutched in its little hand is this dirty, little, worn-out old teddy bear. It's only got one eye, its stuffing is coming out, and it's about as filthy as the little child. But the little child holds on to it because that's all it has. So the child starts to walk across this desert. And up ahead, it sees something, but it's not really sure what it is yet. It's got to get closer. So it just keeps walking and walking, looking for something interesting, but there's really not much going on out in that desert. But as the child walks closer, it notices there's some kind of a structure up ahead. What could it be? And now the child kind of is intrigued and ever so curious. And it hastens its pace a little bit as it's walking towards this object off in the future. Off in the distance. Well, as the child comes closer, it sees that it's not just a platform. It's actually some kind of an amazing throne. Up ahead, there's a platform, and then there's steps that are going up to another platform, and there's somebody sitting up there. Well, who could this be? And the child just keeps walking and walking, and eventually it comes to the foot of this platform, which is fairly high up, towering above the child. And the child looks way up, and lo and behold, if there isn't a beautiful king sitting on a throne. And the child looks up and has just never seen anything so radiant, so beautiful. Something this child never would have imagined even existed in a million years. And it looks up and it just sees the beautiful king. And the king is wearing these beautiful, resplendent garments like nothing the child has ever seen before. And it looks up and it notices that the king is just sitting there very calmly, and it's looking out. It's looking out as though it's looking out onto the horizon, or it's looking out far away, and it's watching something. And the child wants to go up to the king. But it looks at its dirty hands. It looks at its raggedy old teddy bear. And it looks at its rags and its filth. And it looks back up to the king and goes, "Oh no, I know what happens when we try to go up to people that are clean and beautiful. I know what happened the last time I tried to approach somebody who was in a better condition than myself, and the results were not good. And I kind of learned my lesson that I shouldn't go up to people like that, and I shouldn't bother them, that they're kind of important." But the child just couldn't stop its curiosity. And it wanted to go up, and it just really wanted to go up and see the king. And so with great fear, the child just summoned all of its courage and took a step up closer toward the king. And it cowered there because it was used to a negative outcome. But then the child pulled itself erect again and looked up to see what the king was doing. And the king was just looking out over things and not seeming to pay any attention to the child at all. Well, the child felt a little bit maybe like this was going to be an okay thing to do, and he just couldn't stop his curiosity. He just really wanted to go up there and be with the king. It just was such an amazing sight to see, and it just inexplicably drew the child towards the king. And so the child took another step. Excuse me. This time it waited a few minutes, and nothing bad happened. But there was many steps, and each time the child had to really engage all of its curiosity and all of its courage to take yet the next step. But it just kept going up and up and up till it came to the platform at the top where the king was and where the throne was. And the child thought, I have to keep going. I just have to. I don't know what's going to happen to me for doing this, but I just have to do it. And the child takes the final step up onto the platform where the king is sitting on the throne, and nothing bad happens. And the child is really happy, and it looks back down all those stairs, and it looks back down to the desert below. And all the child can see, for as far out as it can see, as far out as its line of sight would allow it. And there was just basically nothing. And the child decided that being near the king was good enough, that it never wanted to go back. And it took a look at its dirty old broken teddy bear, and it lifted it up and it flung it as far as it could out back down onto the desert, because the child didn't need the teddy bear anymore. Now it was in the presence of this great king. The child stood there for a while and looked out at the king, looked up at the king, and just marveled at how beautiful it was and how radiant and how clean. Wow, child had never seen anybody that clean before. And slowly and cautiously, the child made its way towards the throne. And when it came to the foot of the throne, still nothing bad happened. And the child thought, well, I want to see what the king sees. I'd like to sit on the king's lap. And so it summons all of its courage and it lifts up its foot. It steps up onto the throne platform, and it walks right up to the king, and nothing bad happens. So the child decides to go for it, and it climbs up onto the knee of the king. And from the knee of the king, the child can see everything that the king can see. The king is looking out on all of the affairs of humankind throughout all of history, past, present, future. The king is able to see all things, and the king just observes all things. And now the child sitting on the king is also able to observe all things. And as it sits there with the king, some of the dirt starts to fall off, and its hair starts to unmat, and it starts to feel satisfied, like it's because it's having something that it always needed and always wanted. And the child felt like this is where it truly belonged. This is where it finally felt like it was at home. But as the child is looking out, the king is looking out, the child accidentally lets out a little fart. And the child is terrified and looks quickly up at the king, expecting to be thrown down from the king's knee. But the king doesn't do anything. He kind of has a little smirk out of the corner of his mouth, but he doesn't say anything. He just goes on observing all things. And the child realizes that no harm is going to come to it, and that all kinds of human behaviors and functions and even dirt and even rags, nothing is going to put the king off, and that the child finally has found a safe harbor. So that's the first part of the vision. Excuse me for getting emotional, but it's so real when I see it, and I have so much compassion for the child. I want to talk a little bit about what the vision means, what it stands for. And then you might need a Kleenex too. So the child is us. The child is you, and the child is me, and the child is everybody we know. And when we wake up to the construct, it feels like we're in a desert. It feels like there's just nothing gives us the kind of pleasure that we used to get from things, like shopping just loses its joy, and we get tired of being on our phones all the time, and we really get tired of some of the social bullshit we have to deal with, and the constantly changing reality. It's like having the rug ripped out from under us all the time. And our rags represent the level of self-evolution we've been able to achieve while living under the construct. You see, the construct is designed to rob us of our energy and our resources, which basically often boil down to the same thing. The construct robs us of proper kind of social interactions and relationships, and it steals away our ability to be truly healthy, alive, and integrated with this beautiful planet. This is our birthright. So in comparison, when we look around mainstream society, it's just a desert. It's just a wasteland, and we lose interest in it. As we continue on our journey, We find helpers and we find mentors, and we're inspired to go in different directions. But there's always a deeper calling within us. The more we wake up, the more we're willing to see what's really going on, the more we're willing to want something better for ourselves, the more we're traveling in the direction of the King. And we might not even know what it is in the beginning. It's so foreign to us because we've never experienced it, and probably neither of our parents, and certainly not our grandparents. And on and on and on for how many thousands of years. And so walking towards the platform is our searching, our willing to put in the time and the effort to search for something better. And when we come close enough, we start to identify what that might be. Now, our filth represents our shame, because we've been multi-generation after multi-of-generation. Shame has been used to shape us. And, we don't have any need for that shame, but we don't know that. And it's become genetically marked into our DNA to the point where we're not even aware of it, and it just keeps perpetuating generation after generation. And the guilt and the shame starts to come off of us as we start our ascension process and as we continue on it. When we learn the truth about food, when we learn the truth about all kinds of things. I don't want to pinpoint anything. I don't want to make it too specific, because this message is for you, and I want you to be able to see the things in your life that have meaning for you. So it takes great courage to step up onto that first level of that platform. And from there, we can see a little further than we could when we were on the ground. And each step takes us closer and closer to where we belong. Not something we have to earn, something that was always, always ours right from the beginning. Now, for me, there's 9 steps, which is part of the Quantum Health Transformation Program. For you, it might be 2 steps, or it might be 100. It all depends. It all depends on what you need and what your hero's journey, where it's going to lead you, and what adventures that you're going to have and what you're going to learn from it. And certainly the research will open doors, and then there will be an adjustment period after that. And then we take another step, and it just continues. This is the nature of life. This is a lifelong evolutionary process. This isn't something we just do once. Some people, they become more aware of racism and privilege, and they think that's what it's all about. And it's just a tiny, 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 tiny drop in an ocean of issues. Because as mentioned before, the construct is everything. It's the medical industry. It's the way, it's our history, the way history's been taught to us, which is, none of it's really empirically true, or it's only true to the victor or the person who is authorizing the writing. It may not be true for anyone else. And there are so many things to discover and to open up. And it takes effort, and it takes courage. And along the way, people think we've completely lost our minds. They think that, they don't want to hang with us. Well, first of all, it's because they can't go where we go. And the second thing is it's scary for them. It's very scary for them, because then they're going to have to wake up, and then they're going to have to question everything they've been taught. And they're going to have to wonder whether or not they're crazy. And truly, crazy is what is outside of the construct, which is like stepping outside of the box. But the good news is we're in very good company there. All the bestest people throughout history have been outside of the box. So I'm not saying that those outside of the box are better, but what they've been willing to go through in order to evolve and wake up and transcend this life experience is just such a rewarding and juicy thing to be a part of. So now this is not anywhere near the end of the vision, because the child, which is you, continues and continues, and it takes courage and you get to all those other sort of negative attributes we have, like stubbornness. Well, we get to apply it here. And anger, we're going to have all kinds of indignant feelings and anger as we explore reality, and we can make that work for us too. That's like rocket fuel. So we learn how to make all these so-called negative again, part of the construct, emotions, how make them work for us. They're actually they're all positive emotions. We just got to learn how to use them as tools for the proper job, really. So anyway, so the child at each point of opening up expects something terrible to happen, and nothing terrible happens. I mean, even when we lose so-called friends and family and positions, it always opens the door to just so much more abundance, and people were better suited to be around. And it's never, I've never been left alone, not even for 5 minutes. As soon as I stop feeling sorry for myself, I'm like little Bo Peep who lost her sheep. And as soon as she sat down and just waited, they all came back to her, right? So I'll be crying, oh, I've lost, my family doesn't want to talk to me or whatever, in my process, just being honest. Then afterwards, I'm going, oh my God, I have this amazing new kind of family that, oh, wow, does it ever make life easier? So anyway, being the child on the platform and being there with the king, and nothing bad happens. Nothing bad happens. Life just gets better and better and better. Of course, there's setbacks, and this is another part that isn't. It's implied. It's not really even implied in the vision, but it does go with the vision, and that is there will be times when the child is making great progress towards being up there with the king. But guess what? Wake up one morning and is right back down in the desert again for whatever reason, a myriad of reasons. I can think of a few good ones, like, for instance, falling back into addictions, getting super triggered by something, or somehow just that it's so much new information that we will, for some reason, kind of hide in safety into the way we thought in the past. This is all normal, healthy part of our evolution. So, and then one starts to climb the stairs again, the steps again. But each time it's easier to get back, easier to get back, easier to get back, and then eventually you stop falling off and you just stay up there with the king. So then the king, allowing the child on its lap to see all the things that the king sees. At this point, once we clear our thinking and our neural pathways, clear out or replace with something better that is actually more objective, where we're looking out into the past, the present, and the future, we can just see things so clearly and so far away, and we can see possibilities. And we can see things that we're not taught about. We don't even know they're real. And an example of that is technologies. Did you know there's med beds that people can go into and be healed of anything? And it's completely energetic and non-evasive. And then today I just saw a video about a machine they can send to outer space, and it'll create whatever they need. It could be a tool, it could be food, it could be water, it could be anything. So basically, they've got replicators out now. They got so many things that we don't even know about. We're still using the same kind of, oh man, I'm using the same kind of stove my mother and my grandmother used. I'm using the same kind of washer and dryer my mother and my grandmother used. Cars are still combustion engines after how many years? And on it goes. So we see different ways of doing things and different ways of being and different ways of approaching things. And it's really a really cool place to be on the knee of the king. So what about the fart? What does the fart represent? Well, the fart just represents our human imperfection. Well, because I think if our digestive systems were perfect, we probably wouldn't fart very often, but we probably still would fart once in a while. But our imperfections, are times when we're not loving to somebody, or we get triggered and we say things we don't mean, or it could even mean just, well, for me, to be honest, I could lose a week binge watching Netflix if I'm not careful. That's not hard to do, just being honest. But um, the fart is always forgivable, and so is falling back down and starting over again. It's all forgivable. It's part of a sacred process. It's a really important process, and only by doing it can we actually test it out and see what it really is all about. So that's the basic interpretation of the story of the filthy child, the king, and the fart. But there are much deeper meanings as well that will surface once you're on your journey and you reconsider the vision. And I'm so grateful to my guides for this vision because it's helped me so much to be patient with the process, to be patient with myself. And I just want to give you a hint, and down the road I'll be talking more about this, but it's a bit of a hint towards the deeper meaning of this vision. There's an even deeper meaning, and it's one that you may or may not be ready for, but when you're ready, you will see it. And that is, you will find out that as the child sits with the king, the filth completely goes away, all wounds are healed. Um, the child has any kind of beautiful clothes it wants to wear. It's beautifully clean and radiant, and it's exactly like the king because eventually the child is the king. So I'll just let you sit with that for a minute. The child is the king. It took me so many years. I can't tell you how many years. Really, it took up until the recent years when we started to move from three-dimensional reality into fourth and fifth dimensional reality that I was able to accept the fact that I, in essence, am the king. And once we get to a certain part of our evolutionary process, we move into becoming the king. And so what that means is we're able to manifest some amazing things for ourselves. Because when the frequency is right, it lines up on an energetic level what the universe is always conspiring to bring us anyway. This is part of the natural state. This is the part of us that has legal standing from before records were even kept. This has never changed. You have a natural um, ability, a natural status as being part of a creature born to this beautiful earth in all of its splendor. All of the rewards that come with life and with living are available to everybody. But there's been a terrible, terrible thing happen, and a construct was created. You could think of it as an evil spell, you could think of it as the work of the devil, or you could think of it as some kind of archon, ET beings, or you could just go, wait a minute, throughout time, people used to be a lot healthier and think a lot clearer. And not everyone, is intuitive. There is the whole sociopathic psychopathic nature that runs strong in some human beings. And they do not have regard for outcomes as they affect the whole. So they have disregarded, as they've made their plans and they make them ahead. They have, I know this is going to sound totally out there, but I'm going to say it anyway. They have technologies that allow them to steer a course into the future. They have done all kinds of experimentation on human beings for thousands of years. They are very aware of what makes us tick and how to maneuver us into different positions of thinking or ways of being so that we serve a purpose. Even today, we're taught that we were created as slaves, as a slave class, for a higher level of being. And although there may be evidence for this, and under some contexts, plural of context, this may be true, but in a natural order of things, this is not true. We are not slaves to anybody. We are slaves to ourselves. We are slaves to a cause. We're not slaves to anybody else. We are free beings. What I mean by slaves to ourselves is, those of us who were born and raised in extremely dysfunctional families, we didn't learn the skills we needed for growing up, and so we have to later on in life create and grow an internal parent, so that internal parent can guide us towards a more healthful way of living. So I don't want to take this down too many other rabbit holes, but I want you to know that we all have this mask we wear when we go out. Yeah, now we have literal ones, but that sometimes we have to wear or we can't get food. It's like that. But there's another mask we all wear, and that is who we think we are before we go through our awakening process, before that gets shattered and we start to see the real self. And the real self involves light and shadow integration work, quite a bit of it really, to develop. But in the beginning, we think this is what we are. And so we think that, we judge ourselves on how well we're doing by the shape of our backside, or perhaps by, whether we have, how many prestige items we think we own, and all these other stories we tell ourselves to try to make ourselves not be clear that we're actually the filthy child in the desert. And all of those things are the raggedy teddy, the raggedy old teddy, the dirty old teddy, that the child realizes that it doesn't need any of those things when it gets to the top. Now, let me clarify. It doesn't mean that you don't get to have anything. It just means that we all get to have stuff, and we all get to have stuff done the right way, which means that it's in harmony with the flow of the planet and with the cycles of the earth and the cycles of the other beings that we share this planet with, the animals, even the bugs, everything. So, it's really important that we get to that point where we're able to stand naked, really naked, emotionally naked, spiritually naked. And I don't know about you guys, but it took a great deal of crashing and burning before I was ready to see any of that. So I don't want you to think that I am a guru. I'm not. I'm not your guru. Absolutely not. You are your guru. And if there's anything that I'm sharing from my life that helps you to find your guru, go for it. It's important. And so you may have a completely different way of seeing reality. So the filthy child, the king, and the fart may not be relevant to you. It might be another story, but it doesn't matter. They all lead to the same place and to the same process. And this is what we get out of all of this. Once we withdraw from the construct and we now put our focus into what's healthful and what's healing for the planet for every individual, for us as a collective, and I don't consider the two to be the same. The collective is actually much greater and much stronger than if you added up all the individuals. And all of this moves towards an integrated, healthier approach. And it also comes from realizing that we actually are an emergent reality. Now, that's one that even I have my trouble wrapping my head around. So it's like a three-dimensional object will shine a two-dimensional shadow. So the shadow has height and width, but no depth. Well, our third dimensional reality is a shadow of who we really are. This is just our shadow going through this construct and doing this work that we do here. And the more work that we do here and the better we make things here, that also changes everything for everybody else. And the other thing is that evolution and prosperity and health and loving relationships, they are not meant for just a few. Those things are meant for every single one of us. And so if we're doing really well and the other half of the planet does not even have access to clean water or a hot bath, there's a problem here. And we can change all of this. We can fix absolutely everything. But we have to wake up from the construct. And it's hard. It's really hard. I mean, what would happen for me is I would I would make it up a certain amount of stairs towards the king, and then I would fall off, but I would fall off a long ways away so that I couldn't even see the platform and the king anymore. And it took time and the loving care of my higher self and the way my reality is constantly being created for my maximum learning potential, that I was able to over and over and over again reacquaint myself. And then I would stay on the platform with the king longer and longer and longer. And when I do fall off, I'm able to climb up those steps two at a time. And even making all of these videos and all of these presentations, I mean, this is hours and hours of work, and I'm certainly happy to do it, but I got to be honest, a lot of this is for me, to remind me, to keep me on track so that I can tell you. So it's not that I don't think I just think that some of you are in all kinds of different places, okay? And some of you are way out in the desert. Some of you haven't even found the desert yet. You're still back in the city. You're still back in the construct and, I don't know, doing whatever. I can't remember what I even used to do there, but I know I used to go shopping a lot, and I used to like to visit people. And I've always helped people a lot too, so I always, enjoyed that. And then service changes as we go through our ascension process. So I just got another moment or two before I move on. I want to say that there are all kinds of different kinds of interpretations of what ascension or what awakening means, and mine is not the only one. And I don't claim that it's the best or the only one. I think there's room for all of us. Here I am strictly talking on a personal evolutionary process that takes us out of something that does not work for us and brings us into a state of what is working for us. And the natural part of all of that is discovering who we really are, realizing how lovely each and every one of us really is, and waking up to our tremendous potential and abilities. And I'm telling you, it makes me excited to get out of bed in the morning, even with everything that's going on around me. But everything that we do in this life, we take with us. So the more of this work we do, the more it's done, and we take it with us onto the next amazing adventure. So I'm not even afraid of dying because I'm working every day to make my tomorrows better. So in my real three-dimensional to five-dimensional reality, my life is getting better and better all the time. But I'm also setting things up for the next life. And I got to tell you, it's tremendously comforting and a hell of a lot better than any of the crap they threw at me, calling it reality within the construct. Okay, just a reminder, the Quantum Health Transformation online course and other inspiring information is free. And if you would like to help support my work, please purchase some of my beautiful Zen Dome orgone generators. Now, due to the pandemic, we're having difficulty sourcing supplies, and so we're unable to make more at this time, but there's still quite a few to choose from. So visit my website, read up on orgone generators, find out if they are, or maybe not for you, they might be for somebody else. But I got to tell you, they've sure helped me a lot, and they're sure helping a lot of people. I get so much positive feedback, and it just makes me feel so good to be able to supply them. If you would like to enjoy more of my content, check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com, where you will find an abundance of free resources to assist with energetic ascension into physical, mental, and spiritual paradise.